Hi again, everybody. Bill Owen here with another podcast, and we're going to talk today about the world's greatest authors. That's pretty subjective, isn't it? How to be objective about that. Although I think there's a good chance that most of us would agree on who the world's greatest author was, at least in the English language. Stop and think about your favorite authors, and he may not be your favorite, but he seems to be the foundation, the basic author in the English language. None other than William Shakespeare. Hard to question that choice. He was born, as many of you know, in Stratford-upon-Avon, England, back in April of 1564. He only lived to be 52. He was what a prolific writer. And of those years, he was not writing, but just a few of them. First, he was an actor, and later on, he just sat around the coffee house. So his period of accomplishment was very brief, comparatively. The exact date that he was born is unknown to this day. They do know he was baptized on April 26th. So somewhere in April of 1564, the birth of the bard William Shakespeare. Poet and playwright, 38 plays, 2 narrative poems, 154 sonnets. The Bard of Avon. He was equally adept at writing comedies and tragedies for the stage, quite versatile. The great William Shakespeare. He died April 23rd, 1616, as we said, living 52 years. Well, there's something interesting about that. He died on the same day, April 23rd, as the greatest writer of the Spanish language, Miguel Cervantes, creator of Don Quixote, of course. They both died April 23rd, and yet, magically, Cervantes died 10 days earlier. Now that sounds like confusion and a contradiction. How can that be? They both died April 23rd, 1616. Well, it has to do with the calendar. Remember, the Julian calendar was replaced eventually by the Gregorian calendar. And what happened was Spain was using the Gregorian calendar in 1616, and England was still on the Julian calendar. So they really were 10 days apart. Those 10 days, a lot of people, they say rioted in the streets when they declared that they were going to skip forward 10 more days. People thought they were losing 10 days of their life. By the time the United States, the young America, changed over to the Gregorian calendar, they had to add 11 days, and that's caused a little confusion on George Washington's birthday, who's traditionally born on the 22nd, but really born on the 11th. So that sounds a little confusing, but just a matter of adding days to catch up, and so they made the conversion in those countries. But the reason England was a little slow is they didn't want to just subscribe to something that the Pope had done, and Spain, of course, was much more willing to accept it. And Pope Gregory was right in the calculations, whether he did them or had somebody do them for him. But it is a very interesting thing that happened. You could say they both died the same date, and yet they died 10 days apart. From William Shakespeare, where do we go? We go to number 2 on the list. Another one shouldn't be too controversial, Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens, the greatest of the Victorian era. He lived from 1812 to 1870. His first success was a serialized version of the Pickwick Papers. Oh, you remember some of the other great novels. Many have been made into movies. Oliver Twist, even into a musical, Oliver. There was Nicholas Nickleby, David Copperfield, the favorite of so many people. Barnaby Rudge, A Christmas Carol. Bleak House, A Tale of Two Cities, of course the cities being London and Paris. Great Expectations, another classic novel. What a list of accomplishments. The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which unfortunately was unfinished, and several other writers have tried to finish The Mystery of Edwin Drood, but no one agrees on the completion. The expression, "what the Dickens?" You think that has something to do with Charles? Turns out not. It first appeared in The Merry Wives of Windsor by Shakespeare as early as 1602, long before Charles Dickens was born, as we mentioned, in 1812. Well, continuing on down with the world's greatest authors, I guess you'd say he's certainly one of my favorites, very popular with the French as well as with the American public, Edgar Allan Poe. And he lived only 40 years, from 1809 to 1849. And I'm sure you can name a lot of his works. The Black Cat, The Cask of Amontillado, that still gives me chills when I think of that story. The man being buried in a brick wall. There was The Fall of the House of Usher. The first one that I read by Poe in ninth grade was The Gold Bug. And there was Murders in the Rue Morgue, the first real detective story in all literature. Murders in the Rue Morgue. There was The Pit and the Pendulum. That was very scary. So many of them were eerie. There was The Telltale Heart. And of course, those great poems like Annabel Lee and To Helen, Lenore. How about The Raven? Raven, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Isn't that beautiful? Edgar Allan Poe. And we mentioned Miguel Cervantes, of course, with Don Quixote, the greatest of all the Spanish language writers. How about Mark Twain coming in next on the list? Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A lot of people dismiss Longfellow, but he was really a great poet, a wonderful rhymer, accomplished man of the arts. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Ralph Waldo Emerson, noted for his many, many essays and so many quotations. In fact, between Emerson and the next one on the list, Alexander Pope, they seem to dominate when you have quotations from famous works. Then there's Victor Hugo. So many great stories. And this is a surprise maybe on the list. People don't think about Goethe much anymore. Johann von Goethe. But a great, great writer. Brilliant, brilliant man. Oh, who are some of the other great writers you have to think about? Robert Louis Stevenson. Poetry as well as stories. John Keats. There was Percy Shelley. And Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley created Frankenstein as a very young woman. There was Lord Byron. There was Thomas Gray. Elegy in a Country Churchyard. How about Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, his wife? Harriet Beecher Stowe, her accomplishment, of course, Uncle Tom's Cabin. When she met Abraham Lincoln, he said, "Oh, so you're the little lady that started the Civil War." I guess you could make a case for that. Emily Dickinson, beloved poet. There was Ernest Hemingway. We got to mention the Brontes, Charlotte, and her sister Emily. Sir Walter Scott. Oh, my goodness. So many great works. Ivanhoe. Nathaniel Hawthorne, great New England poet. How about Joel Chandler Harris and his Uncle Remus Tales? Louisa May Alcott. John Donne. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. John Donne. Leo Tolstoy, perhaps the greatest of all the Russian writers. There was Fyodor Dostoevsky. There was Jane Austen in America. There was Alexander Dumas, my father's favorite. So many great adventure stories. How about William Makepeace Thackeray? I love that middle name, Makepeace. And the creator of Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle. Oh, the list goes on, but what a debt we owe to these wonderful people who left us a legacy of wonderful stories that live on and on. Shakespeare, Dickens, Poe, Cervantes, Twain, Longfellow, Emerson, Pope, Hugo, Goethe, Scott, Dickinson. Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to get together with you and just reminisce about various topics. We cover a lot of ground. We've done the big bands and baseball players, football coaches, and fictional heroes, superheroes like Batman, Superman, the comic strips, old-time radio. Endless topics, and we hope to have more for you at another time. For now, this is Bill Owen signing off.